Hi, everyone. Welcome back to our daily hourly special organized by the Meditation Museum. I'm your host, Sister Jenna, and we are missing you in a physical way, but really glad that you could be joining us in this virtual, what we call in Hindi, avyakt, which is really subtle. I feel we get the best of you because your mind is focused, your eyes are focused, your ears are focused, and when you tune in, you mean it. Today, we're happy to tell you that we're also broadcasting on the Meditation Museum Facebook Live. And of course, if you're on the YouTube for the Meditation Museum, you can also click into that. Just go to the Meditation Museum YouTube and you'll be able to take advantage of what is guaranteed to be a very, very informative, helpful, and useful program today. But on a personal note, yesterday I shared with you a little bit about some issues and stuff, which were not nothing major. But today I had a beautiful session at 6:15 in the morning. As you know, we do our regular daily classes, and it was filled with just this incredible amount of positive energy. And when we were done, I was telling everyone in the house, do you feel the fragrance of the place? How you can just tune in. We were tuning into India, and we spoke to one of our wonderful elder brothers, Brother Mithunjaya, who is here for the Stand Up for Humanity mega event on the mall last year. And so it was just his fragrance and where he was located, and the whole space just uplifted a million times over. And it turned out that today I didn't have back to back Zoom conference calls or Zoom meetings. And I told Antonia, please don't do that to me anymore. I don't want to be all over the place. Like, no. Right now, my focus is accumulation of virtues, accumulation of love, accumulation of the power of silence, accumulation of God's presence, God's love flowing through my personality, because I believe that after we pass through this corona epidemic, we're going to have to be karunas, which are embodiments of compassion. It's a beautiful Sanskrit word. We're being given a golden chance to make some deep changes inside of ourselves. And I know as you go through your second or your third week, it might be getting a little tough, you know. You might be wondering what to do. Maybe a little bit of boredom is setting in, or laziness is setting in, or frustration, or fear, or worry. And those are normal feelings. But I do want to ask you to step up and step above it, because that's not going to help us. You're going to have to start to co create the thought of the future that you want. And every day, I'm asking you to wake up, you and your family, if you're with a family, or if you're by yourself. I'm asking you to write down the thoughts of the reality that you want, and to please introduce God's love into that thought of reality, so it's even more refined, more elevated, more generous, more benevolent, more beautiful. I don't think we have a choice. I think temperaments are going to rise. I think insecurities are going to rise. But I also believe awakenings in the hearts and the minds and the souls of many will also rise. Before I take you into this wonderful experience with Dr. Bradley Nelson, I'm going to show you a short footage that he sent to us. And when the footage is over, we're going to have Dr. Bradley Nelson all for you. Thank you for joining in, and tell your friends about the show today.
Healing is a birthright that belongs to every single one of us. But we all have this innate ability to heal. So that's what we're doing, is giving that back to people. And I can't imagine doing it any more fun. It's almost showtime. We have symptoms in our lives because of the imbalances that we're suffering from. And the body code enables us to very quickly find those imbalances and just knock them right out.
How can I achieve more balance in the area of stress management?
I mean, it's a big responsibility to have this many people in a room that are all relying on you to give them some additional wisdom to help them on their healing path.
I'm just excited. I'm excited to be here. I like to feel the energy of the people around me.
And people are engaged, they're excited to be here. I can feel that from where I'm sitting.
These people are all waking up to their own healing abilities. It's really a lot bigger than any of us. And that's why I tell people I just work here, really. I'm just the messenger, that's all. You know, I've done seminars all over the world. I mean, the more people there are in a room, the more fun it is for me as a speaker. It's real.
Life-changing. It resonated with me.
People can expect to have their eyes opened and their hearts opened to some whole new ways of looking at their lives and dealing with their stuff and getting ahead in ways that maybe they never have been able to before.
I loved that video. So now you have an idea of who we're about to have on, and I'm personally quite curious about this process. In particular for, a very dear friend and member of the family, but also for so many of you who are going through a very high anxiety time, a very high stress time. And I think that it's really, really important for us to be able to master this particular moment. So let me just put on my glasses because I'm getting older. So, think about this. Have you ever thought about how much your emotions are actually influencing your health? I have. One of my concerns about what we're going through with this pandemic, with COVID-19, is the strain it must be having on people's mentality and vibration and cells of their bodies. So, our guest today and our wonderful brother, Dr. Bradley Nelson, is the author of the best selling book, The Emotion Code, and it explains how to identify and release trapped emotions that blocks us from wellness. Can you underline that? His book will offer you a method that can help you to release trapped emotions that are blocking us from our wellness. He's a veteran holistic physician and one of the world's foremost experts on natural methods of achieving wellness. He has trained thousands of certified practitioners worldwide to help people overcome physical and emotional discomfort by releasing their emotional baggage. It gives me great pleasure to welcome my wonderful brother, Dr. Bradley Nelson, to our Meditation Museum special hour. I'm calling this a spiritual vaccine, Bradley.
Well, I like that. It's great to be here, Sister Jenna. Thank you for having me on.
I'm so glad that we were able to get together at this particular crucial time because your work is very important. I've got a lot of things in me that I want to ask you, but I'm going to start off slowly. Um, Firstly, could you share with us a little bit about what the emotion code is, which I know you've told this a million times over, but there's nothing more profound than maybe finding a few folks who have never heard about it to awaken to it. So could you tell us a little bit about what it is?
Well, absolutely. Emotions are really a gift from our subconscious mind. And when we feel emotions, we feel emotions based on what's going on in the moment, but also based on the emotional baggage that we have already. And that emotional baggage is what the emotion code is all about. The emotion code is about finding that emotional baggage and getting rid of that emotional baggage. And what we have found is that this emotional baggage, these trapped emotional energies that inhabit our bodies, are really the number one most common kind of imbalance that we suffer from as human beings. And it's easy to find this baggage and get rid of it. And it's simple enough that children can do it. And yet it can be incredibly powerful. Now, when we think about what's going on right now with this pandemic, Of course, the level of fear is very high. Many people are feeling a level of continual fear and anxiety that they've never dealt with before in their whole lives. And it can really change your vibrational level to get rid of that emotional baggage. And you can find and you can get rid of it yourself. It's a process. We all have, if we're adults, we all have quite a bit of emotional baggage. But finding that baggage and getting rid of it is something that you can start doing every day to help yourself. And so, in my mind, really, if you think about it, you've got fear, which is a very, very low vibration. And that's where much of the world is right now. We're dealing with this pandemic. We've never dealt with anything,
Indeed.
right? On the other end of that spectrum, on the higher end of that vibrational scale, is love and joy. And so what we have to do for ourselves is make a conscious decision where we want to be. Where do we want to place ourselves on that vibrational scale? We don't have to be in a state of fear. Um, I think that it can help to go on a little bit of a media diet, touch base once in a while to know what's going on. But having the TV on all the time is a surefire way to put yourself into a very, very low vibration. Okay.
Now,
So,
Dr. Bradley, wouldn't you say that our society, a very large percentage of our society, has become addicted to a low vibration? Just take a look at Hollywood and the
yeah.
media and music, that
Mhm.
even when a real life crisis appears, it's almost as if they're just feeding something that they've seen in the media, not
Yeah.
really realizing, oh, this is personally about me now. How
Right.
would you speak to that?
Well, I think you're absolutely right. I think it's unfortunately true. There is how would you say this? The dark side of things has its addictive qualities, but the light side of things has its addictive qualities as well. And when we find ourselves, when we choose those higher vibrations and we start to feel gratitude and we start to feel love, those are positive for our souls. Our souls want those high vibrations. But I think that it is easier to fall into the lower ones. It doesn't take any effort to fall into the low vibrations. Um, the higher vibrations take some effort to move towards and get into, but they're also, I think, equally as addictive in a good way. So, so this presentation that I put together is about how we can help ourselves during this kind of situation that we're facing, to function on a higher level and feel better.
Would love for us to take us through the journey with that because I think people are really looking for inner answers. Like you said, it might be easier to just go with the lower vibration, but what will it take for me internally to say, I don't want this anymore?
Mhm.
That's one. And the second thing is, what do I need to sustain acquiring a higher level of interpretation for
Mhm.
my life? Because 90% of the energy is about bringing you back down. And so, of course, for folks who tune into like this hour show, Bradley, we decided to do this because we wanted to sustain the staff and the students and the community. It wasn't for the world to see, really, but it started to become a tool that people could turn to every day at 6:30 just to feel a little bit of a spiritual refreshment. And so we've kept going until whenever the museums open up again and whenever we decide to move forward. But I'll tell you this, it's not easy to find the right energy, the right intentionality, the right narrative that can really give you that spiritual charge. So I'm looking really forward to the process you're about to take us in. And everyone, if you've just joined in, we're having a beautiful heart to heart conversation with Dr. Bradley Nelson, the author of Emotion Code, and also just a really deep thinking brother who's offering us tools to get over the emotional blockages that's not only making us unwell at a physical level, but it's also disturbing our relationships, the way we deal with money, and the way we even see ourselves. So don't touch that dial, because now he's going to be taking us through a wonderful process for a while. And I'd really like you to get your pen, paper. Later on in the show, you'll have a chance to ask Dr. Nelson any questions, and we're going to hopefully get to your question. So be patient with us. But my intention for you is to really take maximum from tonight's session. So, Bradley, I'm looking forward to the slides. Take us through it and let me see what I'm going to jump out of my seat with shortly.
Okay. I'm trying to share my screen. It says that host disabled attendee screen sharing. Can you take a look at that?
He'll be able to get it up shortly.
Okay.
I'm sure he'll put it up. No worries.
Okay.
So, when you look at the anxiety and the stress factor, we need a very strong immunity level. And having fear of the unknown, the stress of the unknown, the anxiety of the unknown, Dr. Bradley, aren't we killing ourselves naturally without even getting the COVID virus?
Well, yes, absolutely. And there are stories about people who were told that they were going to die. For example, a famous story about a woman who wasn't feeling well. She goes into the hospital and they told her she had 6 months to live. There was nothing they could do. 6 months later, almost to the day, she died. A couple months after that, they were doing a records review at the hospital and found out that her record, her testing, had been mixed up with another woman's testing who had a very similar name. And there was really nothing wrong with her. All of her tests were fine. So why did she die? Well, she believed she was going to die. And I'll tell you, I absolutely believe right now that there is a percentage of people, I don't know how high it is, but I'd say it's probably significant, of people that are having symptoms that are totally being created by their fear. And I had a conversation with my son last night, and we were talking about this, and he said that he was thinking how fear and being afraid would boost his immune system. And I said, no, it's exactly the opposite. When you're feeling fear and anxiety and panic, what happens is your body produces hormones that actually lower your immune system. I told him, I said, well, why would you need an immune system to be functioning right now if you're about to die? And that's how the body looks at it. It's like the fight or flight response is what it's called. And if you're walking down the trail and all of a sudden there's a bear in front of you, your body goes into this fight or flight response, and those hormones start being produced and your immune system depresses, your blood sugar level goes up because you might need to use that for fuel, your blood fat goes up, and so on. And so yes, you're absolutely right. What's happening right now, the more fear you're allowing yourself to feel, the more you're actually hurting your chances of survival. So
here's an interesting question as we get the slideshow up.
What do I do?
Pre-corona, we were adrenaline junkies. 9 out of
to do screen sharing.
100
Yeah.
people I talked
So
to,
I click
like,
on screen sharing.
just about 99% of people
and
are busy.
iPhone,
And I think we've
iPad,
gotten addicted to that
Safari.
busyness and that
Should
adrenaline
I
high
do
and that fear
desktop then?
factor.
I haven't.
What do you say of that when folks actually
You
get
cannot do it
addicted to
from.
that
We
and
haven't
find that to be
practiced
their
it.
norm?
You cannot do it from. It's
Well,
no, it's.
That's a really interesting question. And I think that
Can you hear me?
I think that people who are in that kind of a state, what they're really trying to do is they're trying to fill the deepest need that is within their heart that they're not even aware of. And that deepest need, I believe, is to be able to become one with that higher power, that creator, with God, that source energy, to get back to where they were. I had an experience once where I was 18 years old, meditating one day, and I had this experience where suddenly some part of me, my heart, I suppose, suddenly remembered where I was before I came here, believing that we're all eternal beings. And I was instantaneously filled with the most impossibly overwhelming feeling of homesickness that I can't even describe it. And it only lasted for a few seconds, and it just left me reeling. And I understood from that we're really strangers passing through this world. And I also understood that it's a good thing that we can't remember where we were before, I think, because otherwise I don't think we'd be able to stand it here for 5 minutes. And so I think that deep within everyone's heart, they have this desire to have perfection and to get back to where they were and to be with that source. And because we can't have that now, people try to fill that with all kinds of other things, sometimes with good things, but sometimes with bad things. People can become adrenaline junkies and they become addicted to all kinds of things, but it's all in an effort to really fulfill that deep, deep need I think we all have.
I
So,
hope no one will get upset with me with the comment that I'm going to make or the question I'm going to make. I almost sometimes feel this virus has come to reconnect us back to ourselves and to God. It's a painful way, but it definitely seems to be urging souls to get back to the source of their divinity and their power and
yeah.
stop running so far away from themselves. Would you agree?
Well, I think that is absolutely what we're seeing. And people are suddenly realizing what's really important to them. And they're realizing that as busy as they were with so many distractions, the level of distraction now has gone down significantly. And people are starting to realize what it means to be a little more human. And they're starting to realize what's really important. Uh, their loved ones, um, the things that they cherish the most, those things
Yeah.
have not been getting enough attention, I think.
Absolutely. I've never seen so many prayer programs online, meditation programs online, inspiring programs online. It's like a tsunami. And I woke up the other day in morning meditation and I said, see, I'm having this conversation with God, right? That I call Baba. I said, see, we were telling them all this time to prepare and to get their minds strong. And now look, everyone's running for this. And I was catching myself having this dialogue, you know? And I'm glad that everyone is returning to their divinity, their source, themselves. And
Yeah.
it's just my intention that everyone will come out of this really vibrant. I think we're ready for your slideshow, and I
Okay.
can't wait to see it. So, Santosh, are we ready to go? All right. Let me see what you've got to show us, Dr. Bradley.
Well, it says host disabled attendee screen sharing. So let's
Okay,
see.
we're going to get it. Don't worry. It's
Okay, no
coming.
worries.
So,
Yeah.
as we move through this particular crisis, what is your ultimate vision of post COVID-19?
Well, I'll tell you what I believe, my own
Mm,
point of view. I think the world is in this transformational process. The world is in labor, in a sense, trying to give birth to this new world where everyone is living not from this brain, but from this brain, the brain in their heart. And I think that's where we're going, and I think that this is part of that. I think that that there are dark forces that want to control mankind, that want to enslave mankind, and that's how it's always been. There's always been the light, and there's always been the dark. You think of the yin yang symbol. There's the light, there's the dark, and those forces, I believe, always stay in a state of relative balance so that as darkness increases in the world in whatever form, light also increases. And so as darkness gets worse and people become more fearful and so on, there's light that's also increasing at the same time. And so you may hear more stories about bad things, but you will also begin to hear more stories about amazing good things and miracles that happen. And it's inevitable as those two forces increase. And I believe that they are increasing in the world. So I think that we just need to be aware that the world is in this transformational process, and it's going to be a little bumpy, but we're going to get there. It'll take us some time, but we are going to get to a place, I believe, that we cannot really even imagine, that it's
yeah.
going to be so much better than anything we have ever known, ever. and
Yeah,
all ancient
I call
writings.
it the golden ages are coming, and I
Yes.
can see the trees of the golden age already, you know?
Yeah.
And these dark forces that you talk about, Bradley, I look at them from an acronym that I use quite regularly called ALGE. A for anger, L for lust, G for greed, A for attachment, and E for ego. And I believe that's the dark force that's consumed the soul's consciousness in such a way that we're getting this time to look inwards and
Mhm.
recognize this isn't what I want, this isn't what I believe I am. And hopefully, folks are finding a method to awaken to the light side, which is the opposite of the algae. I'm really, really hoping for that more than anything else.
Yeah, I really like that. I think that's absolutely right. And there are. I think that the world has had an awful lot of darkness that has reigned for an awful long time. And as the world is trying to transform into this new world, those dark forces, they don't want to give up their power. They want to maintain their power, and they want to maintain control and so on. But and what the virus has to do with this, I'm not saying. I don't know. But if you look at the world and you see the state of fear that everyone's in, fear is obviously a low vibration.
Yeah.
So there's all kinds of ideas about what may be going on behind the scenes and so on. And I don't know anything about it, but
Yeah, we won't talk about that.
yeah. But really, ultimately, it is all about our own progression, our own personal progression. Each one of us is here with the opportunity to
Yeah.
choose um, light, dark, high vibration, low vibration, and it's up to us. But what I will tell you is that when you have emotional baggage, it becomes much harder for you to choose those higher vibrations. It's harder for you to ascend because those dark energies, which are trapped emotions, they're dark energies that inhabit our bodies. Those tend to hold us down to the earth and make it harder for us to ascend, if that makes sense.
Does. Yes, it does. And one of the things I would want to do through these slideshows as soon as we get them up is to be able to make ourselves light and outside of the box. You know, I don't want anybody who's watching the show, even myself, to feel down. So I think now that we've got your slideshows up, take it away and help us to create more wellness.
All right, fantastic. Well, I put this little presentation together. It's called Conquering Stress and Creating Wellness During a Pandemic. So I've been a holistic physician since 1988, so about 32 years now. A master energy healer, created a system called the Body Code System, which enables people to find out whatever may be going on in their own body, whatever it may be, whether it may be some nutritional deficiency or some sort of a pathogen, or whether it's something nutritional or energetic, whatever. And of course, I'm the author of the Emotion Code. What I would like to say, though, is that there is a worldwide fast that's going to be happening this Friday, April 10th. And I'd like to invite your listeners and your watchers to join us. And if you believe in any kind of a higher power, just plead with that higher power that this pandemic may be controlled, that caregivers can be protected, that the economy can be strengthened around the world, and that life can be normalized. And
Beautiful.
fasting, yeah, and fasting is just praying or abstaining from 2 meals or for 24 hours. And if you're unable to go without food, just find another sacrifice that you can give. But I think this has the potential to change this world, because that higher power, I know, loves us and is real. And if we ask for help, we can get it. So this is the Emotion Code. Came out in 2007 originally. This is the new version, the hardcover edition that just came out last year. So if we take a look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, when we're dealing with a situation like what we're dealing with now, we got the basic physiological needs at the bottom, need for safety, need for love and belonging and esteem, and then self-actualization. Some of these things are we're having to set aside to some degree, and we are dealing with a situation that we've never really dealt with before. And so we're off balance, and we're dealing with grief in a way. We're dealing with grief that we may not even realize we're dealing with, because our life is altered in these very basic ways that we have taken for granted for so very long. So we're grieving because we have this loss of routine or loss of normalcy. Some of us are grieving because we've lost a loved one, and my heart goes out to you. Some of us have lost our jobs, and that's kind of terrifying. Loss of surety. Surety is just the assurance that things are going to be the same tomorrow as they are today. We've lost that. And those feelings of safety, we've lost those too. So it's important during this time to cultivate patience. We have an opportunity here to develop some new skills that maybe we were just not really, in a way, able to cultivate before. So here's a quick calming exercise that you can do. Put your hand on your heart. Put your other hand on your abdomen. Inhale for 4 seconds through your nose. Ready? Hold that breath for a count of 7. And then exhale from your mouth for a count of 8. So inhale for 4, hold your breath for 7, exhale for 8. And when you're feeling stressed out, this is something that you can do that will start to immediately calm you down. You can also, with that hand on your heart, you're more likely to be able to hear what your heart is actually telling you. And your heart will whisper to you in very, very quiet ways that can be easy to miss. But this is something that you can do. Now, as you're breathing, think of something that you're grateful for. You can create that heart and brain connection. And the Heart Math Institute has done a lot of research on what they call heart coherence. And creating a coherent pattern between the heart and the brain is very important. Now, you had your normal routine, and that's probably been disrupted for the vast majority of you. So you want to hang on to the pieces of that normal routine that were functioning for you before, and you want to ease up on expectations of yourself. So, for example, pajamas are actually considered clothing now. So if you want to spend the day in your pajamas and be comfortable, I think that's perfectly okay. Add in things to your routine.
Don't.
Right?
I think it creates laziness, but don't mind me.
Well, hey, and you want to be intentional about that. So you want to find ways to stay afloat emotionally. Take care of your physiological needs first, okay? And once you've done those, then reaching out to other people is a great way to take the focus off of yourself and put it onto somebody else. You can always find other people to help. And you can also find distractions that are not just distractions for the sake of distractions themselves, but meaningful distractions, like writing a letter to someone that maybe you haven't talked to for a while, finding someone that you used to know on Facebook, reconnecting with people that you've lost that connection with. And you want to avoid the extra negativity that is all around us. You want to focus on what you can help and what you can do, because in a situation like this, there's often not a lot that it seems that you can do, but there are things you can do. And it's important to have boundaries. Boundaries are really just the lines that we put around ourselves and the lines that we draw between ourselves and things that are not good for us. And so you want to limit the time you also spend consuming content about what's going on in the world, because so much of it is negative. I've talked to some people that have had the TV on 24/7, and they're in a bad way, and needed me to help them, to tell them, look, this is not a good thing because it's so negative. And what you want to do is when you change the content or when you do things that you can do, think about how those things make you feel. It's all about raising your vibration. Remember that you are divine. You are a divine creation. And you want to bring attention to that divine energy within you. And you can ask yourself, if you have some kind of a spiritual teacher that you look up to, like Jesus or Buddha or Krishna, you can ask yourself, what would that teacher do in a situation like I'm in? And that can actually be really useful. Now, the negative emotions that we experience during times like this oftentimes are coming from organs that are imbalanced. They're coming from old emotional baggage, as well as the current situation that we are in. Now, our emotional baggage affects our immune system. And the immune system is just a collection of body parts and functions that protect us in this world. This is a hostile world that we live in. It's important to realize that. I think we're realizing it even more now. What keeps us alive? It's our immune system. The immune system helps us to fight off those invaders and recover after illness and so on. And so,
Immune system, Bradley, is the immune system connected to something spiritual in terms of our personality or sense of feeling?
Well, it absolutely is, because the immune system function. Actually, let me tell you a story. There was a story that is actually written in the Emotion Code book, where a man was taken to a laboratory, and they drew blood from him. And they spun his blood down and they removed the white blood cells. And those are the cells that are really critical immune system cells that hunt and kill invaders that are in your body. And they took those cells out of his blood and they put those cells in a petri dish next to him. Now, this particular man was a sailor in World War II in the Pacific on an aircraft carrier. And during World War II, they experienced kamikaze attacks from the Japanese fighters, where these pilots would commit suicide by crashing their planes into the aircraft carriers and into the other ships. And what they did is they had this man hooked up to electrodes measuring his body responses. They also hooked up this petri dish, so they were measuring the responses of this man's white cells. Mm. And so then what they did is they showed these old newsreel clips of kamikaze planes flying down and crashing into ships. And they would measure his body, his totally involuntary body responses when this was happening. And the needles would peg, and they could see that he was having these responses. He remembered, he was there, his whole body remembered. Well, his white blood cells in the petri dish, they were also going at the same time that he was having these visible responses. His white blood cells were also responding in the same way. And they were slowing down their activity, and their electrical activity was changing and so on. And then they would turn off the movie and things would go back to normal. Then they would show the movie again, and the white blood cells and his body would have the same response. So then they tried an experiment. They got an ambulance, I guess, and they drove his white blood cells in a petri dish that are still alive to another lab a number of miles away. And they were still measuring them. And even though there was all this distance between this man and his white blood cells, later when they compared notes and they looked at the time graph of when they were showing this man these videos and what was going on in his body and in his cells, the responses were exactly the same. So we're very, very connected. The more fear you have, the more anxiety you're feeling, the more panic you're feeling, the more your immune system is actually slowing down. And right now, you want your immune system to be functioning really well.
Yeah, I know I want you to finish the slideshow, because one of the questions I was going to raise is that fear, as debilitating as it is, and so many of us know it's not healthy, we still struggle with breaking its force and its intensity in our lives. And I know you'll address that in the slideshow as well.
Well, we do. And so finding and removing emotional baggage is one of the things that we can do. There are other things as well. Now, and I wanted to cover some of these because this is maybe important for some of you. The imbalances within us are the things that will decrease our immune function, our immune system's ability to really operate at its peak. And so the number one reason for immune system dysfunction is actually emotional baggage, but it can be other things as well. So, for example, some of the things that I recommend during this time for people are these nutrients. Upping your vitamin C, your vitamin D, get out, get sunlight every day for an hour if you can. Trace minerals, very important, especially selenium, manganese, and magnesium. And also, there's a supplement called Cardio Miracle that I believe is the best nitric oxide supplement that's available. You can look that up at cardiomiracle.com. And you can get 20% off of that if you use a promo code Dr. Brad, DRBRAD, and then a percentage of your purchase, if you buy any of that, goes to help us with our mission. But I wanted to mention that to you. So these are all really important things. Now, it's important to be able to forgive yourself as well, because my own belief is, and I haven't been able to quantify this, but I believe that if you are holding unforgiveness for anybody, for someone else in your life, but maybe especially for yourself, you're not going to be able to you're not going to be able to feel the peace that you should be able to feel. And also, you're not going to really be able to have that higher vibration that you want to have. So this is a time, I think, when it's good to look at forgiveness. And it may be, sometimes that's difficult, because sometimes we feel like that person hurt us so much, we can never forgive them. But the reality of it is, when you withhold forgiveness from others, often it's in a sort of an attempt to get even with them, but the only person you're really hurting is you. So you need to let go of those things if you can. And again, we talked about recentering, refocusing on what is truly meaningful, and we're finding those things out during a time like this. And so getting that sense of peace is about ascending in that vibration. And let me tell you, it doesn't really matter so much what's going on in the external world. What matters is what you're choosing, no matter what's going on outside of you. And Viktor Frankl, who was in the concentration camps in World War II, talked about this, and he observed this. And he said that that is the last thing that can never really be taken away from us, is how we choose to respond. And so we can choose those higher vibrations. And we can meditate also to gain more strength, and we can be a blessing, but we can also meditate for and pray for blessings for those that are sick or those that are vulnerable, hospital staff, the essential workers right now, all very important. So my story really began when I was 13 years old. I was diagnosed with kidney disease, and it was about 50% fatal. There was no medical treatment available for me. My parents decided they would take me to see some holistic doctors. And luckily, my parents didn't give up, because these doctors started working with me and followed some simple steps that made the conditions right for me to get well, and it worked. And so I decided that's what I wanted to do with my life. And that's been a long time ago now. But I got in the habit of asking for help from up above with each person that I saw over all of those years. And there were times when, in response to that very private, very personal, very momentary sort of pause, asking for help from up above, that sometimes information would just flood into me like an avalanche of data and understanding. And so I've learned that higher power, however you may refer to it, is very, very aware of our lives and what we're doing. And if we ask for help, we can get help. And I'm a great lover of simplicity. And healing and getting rid of that baggage that we have is actually really simple. And it's about discovering that you have this power within you to do this. Our bodies and our minds are very much intricately connected. And the subconscious mind that is within you is really, truly in control of your health. Now, we talked about emotional baggage. Our emotions are made of energy. They're created by our bodies. And that emotional energy can become trapped in the body, so that you're going through a breakup, or you're going through a divorce, or you're being bullied, or your parents are arguing, or whatever it may be, or you're late for an appointment, or whatever, you're feeling an intense emotion, that energy might get stuck in the body. And that we call that trapped emotions. And it literally is your emotional baggage, and it contributes to all kinds of issues. And releasing those emotions can empower us to make us and help us to feel better. So 3 very important things, 3 truths that I want to share with you. Number 1, you are pure energy, just like everything else. Just like the pillars that you see here on the screen, just like the chair you're sitting on, your house, the earth, the sun, the moon, the stars, it's all just pure energy when you get right down to it. And emotions are also pure energy. And trapped emotional energy especially, becomes an imbalance that may lead to trouble for you. So everything's made of energy. Some we see because it's in the form of physical matter, like your body. Some is invisible, like thought and like emotion. And so we have this invisible energy body or spirit within us that anciently was called the ki or the chi or the prana, depending on where you were in the ancient world. And the physical body is also energy, but it's in the form of matter, so we can actually see it. And so anyway, you already have what it takes to learn how to do this. And my goal really, and what I do in the world, is I help people to discover that they have this energy healing superpower. We certify people to do this. We have almost 6,000 certified practitioners of the emotion code now in about 80 countries around the world. And so if you can think about your emotions for a moment, what would it be? What would your life be like if you didn't have any emotions? Now, I know for many of you, you might be thinking, well, it'd be great to not have all these negative emotions right now, the fear, the dread, the panic, the uncertainty, and so on. But we have to look at positive emotions as well. So if we didn't have any emotions, we'd be like robots, right? Emotions give color to our lives, and they provide motivation and direction and contrast and so on. But our emotions are energy. They're generated by certain organs and glands in the body. And each emotion has its own unique vibrational frequency. So if you're feeling an emotion of anger, that's a different emotional frequency, a different vibration than an emotion of sadness and so on. And it's our emotions, I think, really that make us human, although animals also have emotions. So
Can I ask you to go back
yeah,
to that slide, Bradley?
this
Are
one.
you saying, is it, okay, if we're pure energy
Mhm.
and we're vibrating energy and we're the soul,
Mhm.
isn't the soul creating the vibration in the organs? Or is it that the soul has created that energy for such a long time that the organ is now communicating to that thought vibration and it's sending back the signal to the soul?
Well, I think that what's happening is uh, we have these energies that become trapped within us, and so the way I look at it is that we have this perfection of our spirit, and you might refer to that as the soul, and without the emotional baggage that we have, then all of the vibrations coming out of that soul being generated would be very high vibrations. But the problem is, you can look at each person that's been around for a while, and you can realize that we all have emotional baggage. And emotional baggage, you can think of a trapped emotion is literally a little ball of energy, about the size of a baseball to about the size of a small melon. And really, each one of those is a specific vibrational frequency. So to give you an idea, there was a man that came into me once who had really severe low back discomfort. It was really excruciating. It was a 9 on a 0 to 10 scale. And using the emotion code, I tested him and found that he had a trapped emotion that was actually contributing to his back discomfort. And it had gotten stuck in his body 20 years before. And now the emotion code makes it easy to find this kind of thing. And he remembered exactly what had happened. It was a work situation. He was very upset back then. And he'd had that emotional energy. In other words, this ball of energy, this ball, literally a ball of anger, if you will. That's exactly what it was. And it was lodged in his low back. these balls of emotion will lodge in our body somewhere. And so this was affecting his low back to a point that he was about ready to go to the hospital, to the ER. He was 1 point away from that. Well, I released that emotion, that trapped emotion, which just took literally seconds. And the feeling, the discomfort disappeared from his back instantly. And it went from a 9 to a 0. Boom, just
Now,
that.
when you talk about releasing that energy
Mhm.
from his body, you've got to tell me how you do that.
Well, what we have different methods of muscle testing where and we teach different methods where it's easy to muscle test another person. The subconscious mind, you see, is incredibly intelligent. It's this unbelievably powerful computer, and it knows exactly what's going on with us and exactly what we need to get well. The question, though, is how do you tap into that incredible computer system? How do you do that? And being a computer programmer many, many years ago, that was my question. And you do it through different forms of muscle testing is one of the easiest ways to do it. And so, for example, for him, I had him hold out his arm parallel to the floor, and then I'm asking questions, and certain questions, his arm, he would not be able to resist my downward pressure. And that's a no answer. So the body will be strong, and you'll be able to hold out your arm and resist someone else if the answer is yes, coming from the subconscious. But if the answer coming from the subconscious mind is no, then the arm will weaken and drop. And this is called muscle testing. And it's very widely used in chiropractic and a lot of holistic healing modalities. But anyway, the interesting thing about this guy, so his discomfort level went from a 9 to a 0 instantly. And he couldn't believe it. And he keeps bending over and twisting and exclaiming, it's like a miracle. And I was grateful that it worked so well. Well, a couple of days later, and now if you think about this, okay, what was going on there? These bodies of ours are just energy. And what was going on with him is that he had this ball of anger, really severe, probably about the size of a softball, lodged in his low back. So when I identified that and released that, suddenly the discomfort was gone. Why? Because you see, when you have a trapped emotion, what it's doing on a continual basis is it's distorting the normal energy field of the body. And if you distort that normal energy field of the body long enough, because that's all the body is an energy field, if you distort it long enough, eventually you're going to start having some kind of problems. But the interesting thing about this was, and that's why suddenly the discomfort was gone, because we had removed that distorting force. But a couple of days later, he came back in to see me and he said, he said, my back is still fine. He said, I still can't quite believe it. But he said, for as long as I can remember, he said, first of all, when I came in here, he said, I didn't tell you about everything. He said, for as long as I can remember, I've basically been a rageaholic. He said, as long as I can, forever. He said, I'm always yelling at my wife and my kids. He said, I got to watch the road rage. He said, I'm just always kind of on edge. He said, I've been to anger management several times, hasn't really helped me. And he said, but since you released that trapped emotion of anger from me, I don't feel that anymore. I just feel kind of peaceful. And he said, how does that work? And at the time, I didn't know. And I said, well, I'm not really sure. I'll have to get back to you on that. But I want you to think about something. When you have a trapped emotion, in his case, he had this trapped emotion, literally this ball of invisible anger in his low back. And so when a situation would come along in his life where he might tend to feel the emotion of anger, he would feel it much more easily, much more readily than he otherwise would have. Why? Because literally part of his body was feeling that vibration, that frequency, that emotion 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So when we get rid of these, it changes oftentimes how we feel.
Have you recognized that most of the balls of energy trapped in people's bodies, is it mostly of anger?
Oh no, it runs the gamut. We have a chart of emotions. Actually, your listeners can go to Google and just go to Google Images and just Google emotion code chart, and there's lots of them. In fact, here I'll show you. I've got a chart right here. Let me just turn on my camera for a minute here. So
I was thinking that if that ball of anger is in the body, is it a consistent energy that's in many of us? And have you found that to be a very prevailing vibe that's just stuck in our bodies, or are there other energies like loss or abandonment or
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So we have 60 emotions on the chart that we use.
Wow.
I'm not sure if it'll be able to focus on this close, but yes, this chart, you can find these on Google Images. There's lots and lots of these, or you can actually go to emotioncodegift.com and you can download one. But anyway, yes, there are 60 different emotions. So what happens is our body generates the emotional vibration. When something happens and we're going to feel an emotion, here's the process. That's step one. Step two is that we feel the emotion, we feel those thoughts, those physical sensations. Number three should be that we let the emotion go and we move on with our lives. Now, if either the second or the third step is interrupted, a trapped emotion can occur because this process, this experience has been interrupted somehow. So if we allow the emotion to, if we suppress feeling the emotion, we just don't want to go there, that can result in a trapped emotion. Or if we feel the emotion and we really get involved with it and we really feel the emotion, whatever it might be, that can create a trapped emotion as well. So that energy gets trapped in the body, and that often will happen if the emotion is overpowering, or if you're sick or tired or generally imbalanced in some way, or if there are other similar emotions that are already trapped. So we develop emotional baggage. And that baggage, that emotional baggage, is made of negative trapped emotions. And so what will happen is that emotional baggage that we have within us, and we all have baggage, we've all been through things, especially if we're grown-ups, right? That baggage that we have can then resonate within us and create similar life experiences. So think about this. Sometimes people say, well, I don't know why, but I keep picking the wrong kind of person over and over and over. It's because your baggage is resonating with their baggage and it's drawing you together. Your emotional baggage that's negative about money or love or whatever it might be will tend to draw lack to you or bad relationships to you and so on. And it really is a form of sabotage. So let's take a look here. So no two trapped emotions are the same. Everyone is different. They're each from a different moment in time, and each one of them has a unique specific vibrational frequency. So these emotions get trapped. They're not processed all the way. And so we refer to them as trapped emotions, literally your emotional baggage. Now, they may cause physical problems. Now, our premise and what we have seen is that emotional baggage will tend to cause abnormal cell growth, blood pressure issues, blood sugar imbalances, brain fog, chest discomfort, digestive issues, dizziness, ear issues, fatigue, head discomfort, heart problems, hormonal issues, immunity issues, joint discomfort, muscle discomfort, neck and back discomfort, nervous system issues, organ gland malfunction, reproductive system issues, respiratory sinus issues, skin problems, sleep issues, vision problems, weight issues, and so on. This is just a partial list. These are physical things where we have seen trapped emotions be an underlying cause. Now, they also cause emotional and mental issues, like addictions. They feed addictions, anger problems, anxiousness, eating disorders, feeling empty or sad or disconnected, learning disabilities, loneliness, low self-esteem, memory trouble, mood swings, negativity, nightmares, panic issues, phobias, self-harm, self-sabotage, sexual issues, social fears, stress, feeling stuck in the past, and trust issues. So think about this. Now, if you're watching this right now and you're looking at this list, do you see yourself in this list anywhere? Or did you see yourself in the last list? Because if you did, I can pretty much guarantee you that there is emotional baggage that is at least part of, and maybe the entire reason for, these issues. Trapped emotions can also hurt your heart. You may have something that we call a heart wall. And a heart wall is the most important thing that we talk about in the emotion code. A heart wall is where your body at some point, your subconscious mind, put up a wall around your heart because your heart was going to break at some point in your life. It's a buffer against heartache, but that wall that is put up is literally an invisible wall made from the energy of your emotional baggage, and it will cause you to have trouble connecting with other people, It'll interfere with your ability to feel happiness and joy and create abundance and so on. Because really, the best ideas that you'll ever have are actually in your heart. And that's why people tell you that you should follow your heart. But 93% of people we find have this phenomenon going on. And in the world that we eventually have to get to, where everyone is living from their heart, there won't be any more of these heart walls. But 93% of people have this phenomenon right now. So here's an interesting story from a woman named Sunefa Palsdottir from Iceland. She said, I helped a friend clear a few trapped emotions. She called me the next day, quite emotional, and told me, I haven't allowed myself to say this out loud all day out of fear of jinxing it, but the intense agony in my hip that had been there for 50 years is gone. I cannot believe it. I'm so happy and grateful to have found this amazing, effective energy healing method and cannot wait to help countless people release trapped emotions and feel better. So think about that. You see, what we have realized is that these bodies of ours communicate to us through our symptoms. And of course, Western medicine addresses those symptoms with drugs and surgery and things like that. But we look at it in a totally different way. And if you have discomfort going on of some kind, whether it's mental or emotional or physical, chances are there's emotional baggage behind that. In fact, 90% of all the physical discomfort that people have, even if it's severe like this, is being caused by emotional baggage. So the emotion code might help you to ease emotional and physical discomfort, remove a potential underlying cause of illness. It may help you to move out of the past and into the present and process your feelings better. How important is this right now? Well, let me tell you, I've been doing this for 32 years now as a holistic physician, and I have found that the number one most common imbalance that is interfering with our ability to be totally healthy is precisely this, our emotional baggage. That's it. Now, your subconscious mind knows what emotional baggage you have. That subconscious mind is 99% or more of your intelligence. It's this massive database of information, and it knows all about you and what you need. And so we find trapped emotions, not using any high-tech machinery, just your body and the emotion code. It's actually really simple. So one more story for you. Christine Stokes said, a friend was getting certified in the emotion code and asked if I was interested in having my heart wall removed. I was so lost and desperate to escape the emotions I was feeling. I said yes. After processing the release of these emotions, I felt like a new person. I knew my life would never be the same. I felt like there was a weight lifted off of me. I am truly grateful. The emotion code is an amazing tool. Now we have almost 8,000 stories like this, but I just want to share a couple with you. Now, sometimes change, when you're working with someone using the emotion code, sometimes the change is instantaneous, like the guy that had the low back discomfort. Sometimes those results take more time and repetition. But you can use the emotion code daily. You can use it with your family members. You can work with them and release these imbalances that they have. So, by the way, I think I mentioned this earlier, but it also works with animals. So listen to this one. This is from Jawaid Iqbal in the UK. He said, I received a call from my friend who lives in Pakistan. He told me that there was a goat pregnant with 2 babies, and for the last 2 nights, she'd been standing because the legs of one of the babies went into her udder. She was suffering immensely. He was advised to slaughter the pregnant goat, but he asked me to try and help the goat using the emotion code. I released some trapped emotions, and she delivered 2 baby girls with ease 2 hours later. Now, what this shows you, see, this man, Jawaid, was in the UK. His friend was in Pakistan. And so he was able to work with the goat at a distance. And this is energy medicine, you see, at its finest, because true energy medicine is quantum energy healing. And it knows no barriers. There are no barriers of distance. So that's kind of a fun one, don't you think, Sister Jenna?
And that was so complete.
Yeah.
I had a million questions, but I had to wait. And, we have a little happy puppy, and she's so intuitive that she feels the energy before anything else. And I talk to her like a human being. So I know that we can sense things. I mean, they can sense things at such a deep level.
Yes,
Let's continue.
Okay. Well, how we do that, how we work with people at a distance is what we call proxy. It's a long distance connection. And because energy has no boundaries and anyone can actually learn how to do this. So it's all explained in the emotion code. So here's another story. The emotion code has been the answer to my prayers. I was emotionally and physically abused by my ex-husband over 30 years ago. Antidepressants were the only thing that helped. Today, I am free of this disabling depression through the use of the emotion code. I am happier and more optimistic than I've been in over 30 years. This has given me a new life and purpose. And that's from a woman named Linda Lutz in Arizona, who has become one of our emotion code practitioners. So if you want to try it yourself, you certainly can. And you can feel better prepared to care for yourself, your family, and your pets. And how important is this right now? So important. Now, I wanted to let you know, we do have a virtual seminar coming up on the 16th of May. You can go to discoverhealing.com/events, and you can actually take a seminar where it's a one-day training that we do in the emotion code. So it's discoverhealing.com/events, and that's virtual, of course, because we're all at home, stuck at home. And also, for those of you that are interested, I want to answer this question. Some of you are wondering about this certification program. You can enroll in this course and really discover that healing power within you. It's available at emotioncodecertification.com. Okay. So, by the way, if you're listening to this, we do have this offer that's going on for right now, temporarily. If you want to get emotion code certified, you get $60 off if you use the promo code CERT4. Or if you're already certified in the emotion code and you want to get certified in the body code, then you can use this other promo code CERT5 and you get $80 off of that one. Okay, and that's at discoverhealing.com. Just wanted to mention that really quickly. So for more info and support from us, you can go to discoverhealing.com or my blogs at drbradleynelson.com, discoverhealing.com/contact, and we got a phone number there. And this is all being recorded. So lastly, I just wanted to once again urge you to join us in this worldwide fast on Friday, April 10th. And plead for these things. Ask that higher power to help, because I believe that that higher power, the power that created the universe, that created us, that created the earth, certainly has the ability to intervene. And I think if we ask for that and we expect that, that can happen. And wow, what a great thing and what an exciting thing for this world that will be, right? So that's my presentation.
It was fantastic. It was rich. It was complete. It was full. I wanted to stop you at every slide, but I had to hold myself back. You know, everything that you offer, Bradley, is just telling people, come on, get your act together. And there's a part in which I was listening in. I went, there are emotions there. We know they're stuck and we want to overcome them, but what happens? We just can't let it go. Like there's some sort of a weakness that has slipped into our personality, Bradley. So, you know, this has always been my question. You want to stop what you're doing, but you can't.
Right.
What advice would you give a listener
Well,
who's
you know,
in this
most
particular predicament?
sure. Well, most often that kind of phenomenon is being caused by emotional baggage. And a lot of the time, it's things that you don't even know about. One of the stories from the book that I remember was a woman that came to me when I was in practice, and her problem was she was becoming a court recorder, and you know, court recorders have to type in these specialized machines and get very accurate transcriptions of what's going on in the courtroom. And she was doing fine. She would do fine on the quizzes and so on, but when she went to take the final exam, she had some kind of anxiety or something, some test fear or whatever that would come up, and she would flunk it every time. And she had taken it 3 times and flunked every time. She had one more chance to take it. Now she had gotten straight A's in this course, but she had one more chance, and then that was it. And so I tested her, and what I found was she had a trapped emotion. And I don't remember what the emotion was. It was probably anxiety or fear, depression or something about, and it was from when she was, I think, 9 years old, because her parents were going through a divorce. And somehow, for some weird reason, when she was in the testing situation, that old emotion would come up and she'd flunk the test. Well, she took the test after we released that trapped emotion, sailed through it, got straight at, she got an A+, nailed it.
Wow, fantastic. Well, look, we've got just it's just a little bit of time for a few questions. Someone whose name is Kushali wants to know, how is what you're offering different than Reiki healing? It's an interesting question.
Yeah, well, if you're already doing Reiki healing, the emotion code goes along really well with that, or really with any other kind of healing method, energy healing method, particularly that you've learned. The emotion code enables you to very, very rapidly zero in on and find a trapped emotional energy and release it. Where Reiki takes longer and so on, and that's fine. And Reiki's great. And I've got great friends who are masters in Reiki who also use the emotion code. And so that's really the answer there. It's kind of like, well, I remember there's another method out there that's the tapping method,
Yeah, EFT.
yeah, EFT. And one of the EFT instructors once, who came to a seminar I did in New York City, told me afterwards, she said, the emotion code is like EFT at the speed of light, which I thought was a great
I love
comment.
that. I gotta take it. Dr. Parcels asks, cause of anger can be from various sources. So is this anger ball or balls are in different places? There can be more than one ball present simultaneously. Is that right? So his
Yes.
question is, can you have more than one anger ball trapped somewhere inside?
Yes. Now,
Interesting
what
question.
we've observed is that, or really any emotion, I mean, if you think about it, what we've observed is that the average adult that's maybe 40 or 50 years old probably has several hundred trapped emotions in their body. And
Wow.
there are only 60 on the chart, right? So you're going to find some emotions repeated, but each one will be unique and each one will be about a specific event that has happened in that person's life. I have to mention, though, one of the amazing things that we have found with the emotion code is that because we're tapping into the subconscious mind, we will find emotional energy that has been trapped during the time that you were in the womb, for example, when mom was going through. Typically, it'll be absorbed from mom. She was going
Yes.
through something. We also find the emotional energies that were passed to you at conception from mom or dad that they might have received when they were conceived from their mom or dad. And sometimes these will go back for 10 or 20 generations. And you see, so we're carrying not only the emotional baggage that we've developed during our own lives, but also the emotional baggage that our ancestors developed in some cases. And that may be a reason why you're having trouble now. In fact, one of the most profound healing experiences that I've had in my life was when my daughter was working with me and found I had a trapped emotion of hopelessness that went back 22 generations to an Irish grandmother. And having that release changed my life. I never would have known that was there, but my daughter found it. And I had passed it to her. It's probably why she found it.
Can I tell you, Dr. Nelson, I had that experience. One day I was sitting in meditation and I actually saw how my mother's pregnancy, what it felt like emotionally. And I
Wow.
started to identify and I went, oh, I think that's why there's such a mystery about me,
Huh.
and there's a part of me that I maintain very private,
Huh.
even though I'm very public.
Yeah.
And I accredit that to how I was being fed emotionally by my mother in her womb.
How
Like I
interesting.
literally felt that in a meditation, and I went, ah,
What a
I
great
see
insight.
how I've karmically attracted that. So somebody on Facebook has a question for you, and I know we're going to have to go.
Sure.
Why is anger such a misunderstood emotion? And aren't emotions just energy in motion, but labeled as good or bad?
Well, the way I look at it is that all the emotions really lie on a spectrum. And so, for example, if you go to the very bottom of the spectrum, I believe that the lowest vibration is actually the emotion of shame.
Mm,
Total abject shame uh, is the lowest frequency, I think. And that's why I think that people who are in a total state of absolute shame will often take their own lives because there's no lower emotional vibration they can gravitate downwards to. They're at the very, very bottom of the barrel. Now, on the other hand, on the high end of the scale, we've got these incredibly high vibrations like absolute joy, bliss, right? unconditional love. And what's beautiful about this time that we're living in is that we're learning about this, the difference, really, I think, and we're learning that our emotions don't have to control us. So much of the time, so many of us are kind of conditioned to believe that we don't have any control over our emotions, that our emotions choose us and we're at the mercy of them. And that's not really true. Yes, emotions naturally come up for us, but we can choose the emotions that we want to experience. And we can choose to be above the waterline there. We can choose to be in the positive zone instead of the negative zone. And we can choose unconditional love, and we can choose other positive emotions. There's a long list of positive emotions actually in the book, in the emotion
In the
code.
book.
Yeah.
Have you ever had a client that just couldn't break through the baggage, like let the baggage go and move on?
Well, it's an interesting question. When I was first in practice for quite a number of years, people would come in to see me, and I would remove all the baggage that I could find, all that emotional baggage, and some of those people would leave me with the impression that there was something else. I knew there was other emotional baggage, but I didn't know how to find it. And then what happened was one day, 1998, my wife had a dream one night. And she woke me up the next morning and told me about the dream. And as I'm trying to help her decipher the dream, I suddenly have what I can only describe as a waking vision, where I'm instead of the room that we're in a hotel room at this event. Instead of the room that I'm in, I'm seeing this incredibly beautiful hardwood floor, and it's in high def, 3D, and this lasted for several minutes. And at the same time that I started seeing this floor, I have this understanding that comes into my mind that my wife's heart is underneath this floor. I had no idea what was going on, but that led us to the discovery of the heart wall. And so what happens is, the heart, you see, is what the ancients believed it to be. It's all they believe. It's the seat of love, the source of love, creativity, romance. It's really truly the core of our being and the seat of the soul, I believe. And so when you feel like your heart's going to break, that's a physical sensation. When that's going on, your subconscious mind, your heart will put up a wall around itself to protect itself from being totally broken and shattered. And unfortunately, 93% of people in this world have this phenomenon going on. And
Wow.
getting rid of that heart wall, I believe, is the most important thing you can do for your health right now. And it's completely different from what everybody else is talking about. But I'm telling you, I know that it's true. I spent 17 years in a brick and mortar practice, and then about 2.5 years in a distance practice. During the last 10 or 12 years of my practice, I was working primarily with people that have been told there was no hope for them at all, no cure for them at all. And the vast majority of them were able to get well. But one of the keys to that was removing that wall around their heart. And it's all in the book. You can learn how to do it. But we get testimonials every day from all over the world from people whose lives have been changed by removing that emotional baggage, and suddenly their life changes. People fall in love that never ever thought they would, even at advanced ages when that wall is taken down sometimes. People have creative ideas that start to flow spontaneously, because the best ideas you'll ever have aren't going to come from here. They're going to come from this brain, right?
Yeah, it's fantastic. I am so hooked on you. I downloaded the book, actually, the Audible, and I gave it to my mother, and it was the first book, well, actually the second one. One was the Cleansing Secret by Dr. Habib Sagedi,
Mhm.
and it was yours. And it was the only two books I've ever seen her. If you look at her room, it's like a library, and she reads none of the books, none of them. But I woke up, I went to bed listening, hearing her playing your book, and I
Mm,
woke up looking at her cell phone, listening to your book, The Emotion
really?
Code.
Oh, interesting.
So,
Well, tell
yeah,
her hello for me, will you?
I will.
Give
I
her a
will.
hug for
I
me.
will. And could you leave our listeners? This has been so rich and it's been so powerful, and I can't thank you enough for giving us so
Well,
much of your valuable time. One food for thought as a takeaway. You've given us an encyclopedia, by the way, but breaking it down, one thing that you could guide us in how to remove the heart wall.
yes, sure. Well, in the emotion code, you're going to learn about different methods of muscle testing. And muscle testing is just a way to tap into the subconscious mind. Now, if you're really good at meditation and you're extremely intuitive, then you won't need to use the muscle testing. You can just ask the questions and you'll know what the answers are. And we'll all get to that point someday. I have a daughter who's 20, and she learned how to do the muscle testing when she was, I think, 13, and she hasn't used it since because she just asks the questions and the answers come into her mind, and that's fine. But we teach you several methods. One of the favorite ones is this one. It's called the ring and ring method. You put a ring inside of a ring, and in the book it teaches you the specifics of how to do this. But when you ask for a yes, when you ask a question, the answer is yes. Like, for example, do I have a trapped emotion? The rings will stay together when you try to pull them apart. If you ask a question and the answer is no, then the rings will break open. It's very simple, very easy. There are some other methods in the book that we teach you as well. And so then we have a flow chart. And by the way, you can go to emotioncodegift.com to download these flow charts, okay? And these show you how to do it. But it's really simple. You just ask the subconscious mind questions and it gives you answers.
Yes.
And listen, this is the new paradigm for the future. These bodies of ours are so vastly intelligent. They know exactly what's wrong with us. You've got to believe me. It's so true. When we ask what the subconscious mind needs, what the body needs, the subconscious will tell us. Muscle testing is one of the ways we can tap into that. Now, you can also use dowsing. You can use a pendulum, for example. If you can get yes or no answers on a pendulum, you can use any kind of dowsing tool like a bobber or L rods or anything like that. But anyway, then at that point, what you do is you simply ask, do I have a heart wall? Now, one of the things that you can do, just really quickly, if you stand very relaxed with your arms at your sides, you close your eyes, if you make a statement, like, for example, I have a heart wall, if you hold that thought in your mind very clearly, within about 10 seconds, if you do have a heart wall, your body will sway forward. Like a plant moving toward light, your subconscious mind will sway forward if an answer is yes, okay, or something is congruent or positive. Your body will sway backward if the answer is no. And so we teach you that also in the book. It's really simple. That's called the sway test.
Fantastic. Oh, wow. How long does it take for someone to become a practitioner through your practice?
Well, our practitioner program is an online program. It's all done online. It's a 6-month program. Most people will do it in about half of that time. And the record is 2 weeks. So there's no, you can take 6 months if you want to, but there's really no limit there.
Put into it.
Yeah, it's all done online. And one of the beautiful things about it is you can work with other people, and it doesn't matter where they are in the world. They can be on the other side of the planet. And I've said this many times, the first time that you're working with somebody that's far, far away, thousands of miles away, and you work with them and their discomfort goes from an 8 or a 9 to a 0 from what you did in that moment, your life will change because you'll realize this is real. And it really is true. So it's very exciting for me to have this mission in this world. This is my mission, to bring this work into the world at a time when the world really desperately needs it.
Dr. Bradley Nelson, thank you so much. You've been called, and I can see you're changing the world by changing so many lives. And it couldn't be more meaningful than at this time to get your message out. And I thank you so much for joining us for our hour segment. I know it's gone over, but it was well worth it. And we're going to keep in touch with you. And we're going to keep you so busy. You're going to say, oh gosh, why did I ever say yes to her show? But thank you so much. And really lots of love to the family, and to stay safe. And you've been an absolute delight. And I thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Well, thank you for helping me to get this message to the world. The world needs it so desperately. And so thank you. And do give your mom a hug for me, okay?
I will. Take good care. All the best.
Bye-bye.
So wasn't that rich, everyone, and complete? Can you imagine how much you got back? This is a program that you can play back over and over again to get some tools to take your spiritual vaccine. Dr. Nelson hit it on the nail, everyone. It's all about your quality of thoughts. What are those emotions? Even as I was listening, I was looking at identifying what emotions are still here. I forgot to ask him, I'm Pisces. We're like an emotion cesspool. I mean, we just pick up everybody's stuff. But at the same token, I've been able to balance it out with the wisdom that I carry. So it's been very helpful. But there are times when there are feelings that have been hurt. You've got to address them. Don't suppress them, please. That's where it just stacks up, and then you have to pay. What do they call it when we used to travel, Santosh, and we used to have extra weight? What they call it? Excess baggage. Then you have to pay that fine, and you don't want to do that. Not at this particular time. So look, with COVID doing its thing, we're going to have to do our thing, and we're going to have to step up and step in. Please contact Dr. Bradley Nelson if you want some information on his work. I'm definitely going to be going more into what he's doing and offering too, because I think it's really needed. I think we're way too blocked up by holding on to too many emotions of the past, which are no longer useful for the present nor for our future. Don't forget, the golden age is coming. Can't you see the trees of the golden age, where no one suffers, no one has a loss, no one is in fear? Let's try it. Thank you so much for joining us, guys. It was wonderful. I'm going to end the show with a nice meditation, and I want you to seep in, connect to that part of you. Take a deep breath. How did Dr. Bradley Nelson says? You hold one hand on the heart, one on your abdomen. 4 seconds, breathe in. Is it 8 seconds? Breathe out. 4 seconds, breathe in. Think of everything right. Breathe out what might be your waste. You can do it. Have a great evening. Stay safe. Enjoy this meditation.